Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tomorrow is Flag Day. The Second Continental Congress of June 14, 1777, adopted the flag of the United States some 247 years ago. This was in the midst of our struggle to become a free and independent nation and to become a constitutional republic. Now that flag changed over time as new states were added and the country expanded, but our dedication must be unyielding. They saw it fit to honor the flag. Then we must honor the flag now and forever. We start each legislative day here with the Pledge of Allegiance. That flag that sits behind you right now is a symbol of this great country. We don't make that pledge to a party. We pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. It's a simple but solemn part of the day, and it's done to remind us that we are one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Those stars and those stripes mean a lot to me, Mr. Speaker. It's a flag that I saluted as a soldier, as a combat veteran, and a flag that I've seen many times draped over the coffins of those I'd served with. I hope we never lose sight of the importance of it. And what my amendment does is simple, Mr. Speaker. It honors our flag. We can do this again by asserting the legislative powers as they did in 1777. Currently, no flag other than the approved flag should be displayed in any workplace, common area place, public area of the Department of Defense, which we decided in fiscal year 2024 in the NDAA. Approved flags include the American flag, the state flags, military service flags, and even our POW MIA flag, as well as for others that have 13 total in types. There is, however, a provision that concerns me that allows a flag approved to the discretion of a military chain of command or civilian leadership as appropriate. And this is what my amendment would strike. It would strike the ability from it being a legislative priority that we're abdicating over and bring it back as it was supposed to under Article 1. This is about Congress determining the flags that can be displayed at military installations, and we've already agreed to 13 of them. If a member of Congress or the Department of Defense wants to add to that list, then come and make the argument in the debate here on the floor and have a vote. Don't just give our Article 1 powers away to the executive branch. It is our responsibility as a legislative body in this country to make these determinations in this chamber. I also want to be clear that under current law, a building or an area that primarily serves as a place of residence is exempt, and service members can do as they choose, not denying them their rights that they fight for. There's also an exemption for museum exhibits, license plates, grave sites, memorials, educational displays, and more that were decided here by Congress. I'm here today, Mr. Speaker, to say honor our flag and protect our legislative powers. I hope all my colleagues will join me in doing so, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Florida reserved. For what purpose does the gentleman from Washington rise?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise to claim the time in opposition to the amendment.
Recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. I yield myself 2 minutes.
Gentleman recognized.
The maker of this motion, this amendment, is correct. This is an issue that we have litigated before the House before. I forget how many years ago it was now, but controversy arose over different flags being flown at different military institutions. We attempted to resolve that issue, and we did resolve that issue. We resolved the issue by saying there would be these approved flags, and then by the other piece of it, which is that the local leadership, if they agree, may fly a flag as well. Because there are a whole lot of flags out there in the world. We didn't want to contemplate absolutely all of them. I mean, if somebody's a Dallas Cowboys fan and they want to fly a Dallas Cowboys flag somewhere, the commander or the civilian leadership can rightly decide whether or not it's appropriate within that unit. So I'm with you on the initial part about how much you love the U.S. flag. I love the U.S. flag as well. Let's be clear. This amendment has absolutely nothing to do with the U.S. flag. The U.S. flag can be flown and be appreciated, as it well should be. This is about commanders and civilian leadership at local military installations being able to decide whether or not they want to fly other flags. That was part of the compromise that we agreed to. There is no necessity of banning this. I mean, if you rise to be the person who is in charge of a military installation, I'm going to trust you to be able to make this decision. It is not something that Congress needs to insert itself into. We don't need to decide on every single flag whether it should go up or go down. We litigated this issue. We resolved it in the NDAA. We do not need to reopen it. I urge opposition to this amendment, and with that, I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Florida is recognized.
While I have great respect for my colleague, Mr. Smith, and I have served proudly with him in the Armed Services Committee, I would remind him that it is our responsibility, and that, as our founding fathers had established in 1777, that it is Congress under Article 1 who has the rights and authorities to be able to designate which flags are flown over military installations. We are not talking about outside of their barracks. We are not talking about what they fly outside of their own rooms or even the buildings that they occupy. We are talking about the military installation as a whole. The one thing that Congress has gotten very good at is abdicating our responsibilities, the same way that we abdicate Article 1, Section 8, Clause 11 through 13 of our War Powers Authority within the actual AUMF authorized use of military force. I ask and urge my colleagues to explain why. In 1777, we deemed this as a congressional authority that we now say that any command, and there are good commands, there are bad commands, has the right to overrule and what has actually been done here in the body. And so I urge my colleagues once again to explain why we continue to abdicate our roles and responsibilities within this chamber only to complain about them further later. With that, I reserve.
Florida reserves. The gentleman from Washington is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would say Congress has decided. We decided on 13 flags, and we decided to trust the military installation commanders to make other decisions. We did decide. We've done this 2 or 3 times. You want us to decide something different. Okay, that's not violating anything. That's just going at what you think Congress ought to decide to do. We have exercised the law and the right that you laid out. We exercised it in the way we did. We approved it in this body and in the Senate and in the conference report. It does not need to be reopened. I would urge us to defeat this amendment. And with that, I would yield 1 minute to the gentlelady. You see, now you're back. You see, I introduced you a moment ago incorrectly. The gentlelady from Virginia, Ms. McClellan.
Gentlelady is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I was ready to come up on the last one. But, you know, I find it really interesting that in a Congress that took 15 votes and several days to elect a speaker, and then 3 weeks to elect another speaker, and every must-pass bill has been bogged down with culture war amendments or partisan infighting that has taken us to the brink. And in a Congress that has passed very little legislation compared to other Congresses, that we now want Congress to micromanage, can a local military base, can Fort Gregg Adams in Petersburg or Prince George, for example, if they have a festival and they want to fly a flag related to that festival, they have to come to Congress and ask for a bill to be passed and signed by the President of the United States. That's ridiculous. That is utterly ridiculous. That is why in a wide variety of bills passed by Congress, we delegate some of that minutia to the people on the ground who know in this given situation we can exercise our judgment. I yield back.
Gentleman from Washington reserves. Gentleman from Florida is recognized.
I would remind the gentlelady that the purpose of Congress is not to try and pass as many bills as you can possibly pass, and actually it was the opposition of that. It was actually trying to make it very difficult. And the reason that we're so big on wanting to try and gauge the metrics by how many bills we pass is because we don't even enforce the existing laws that we have on the books, and we think that's somehow a metric of success. The reality is that we are not supposed to be involved in the day-to-day lives of everything, which is why in 1777 we made it very clear, here are the authorized flags we can fly. But I can tell you, if there was a tremendous amount of MAGA flags flying over military installations, you would hear an absolute outcry by the left who would come in and tell you that these are not authorized and approved flags and how dare they do this, and it's a complete atrocity, and J6 is a result of this. And the funny thing is that it's only a great argument when it's to their own benefits. But the reality is this: why can't it be simple? The simplistic thing is this: our military installations and our military service members, myself as an actual armed services member, not sure that my colleagues had actually served in the Army, we wore an American flag on our uniform. Why? Because that's what our American country represented, that flag. So I ask that my colleagues support this and that we get back to supporting and honoring our flag. With that, I yield.
Gentleman yields from Florida yields. The gentleman from Washington is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I yield myself the balance of our time. It
is recognized.
Ironic, the gentleman arguing about how Congress doesn't need to pass a bunch of laws while he's urging us to pass another one. He's the one who's actually proposing and having us pass something else that would place a restriction after we've already dealt with that. This is not an issue that needs to be revisited. We worked it out. We have a bunch of approved flags for everybody. We allow the local commanders to make local decisions. Congress certainly should exercise our authority of oversight over the Department of Defense. Wide variety of different areas where we need to do this. Micromanaging what flag is flown at every single installation in the United States of America and beyond is not a place I think we need to insert ourselves. I oppose this amendment and would urge the body to do so. And with that, I yield back the balance.
The gentleman from Washington yields. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Florida. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. Independently chairs, the ayes have it. The purpose does the gentleman from Washington rise?
I request a recorded vote.
Pursuant to Clause 6, Rule 18, further proceedings on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Florida will be postponed.